My name is Alan Matheson Turing. You're using my ideas every day, though you likely don't realize it. Your computers, your smartphones, your digital lives, they exist because of concepts I developed. I'm often called the father of theoretical computer science and artificial intelligence. The irony, of course, is that I never lived to see what my mathematical children would become. I was born in London on June 23, 1912, to a family that straddled British colonial administration and the fading gentry. My father worked in the Indian Civil Service, one of those men who helped run the empire from distant offices. I hardly saw him during my childhood. My mother, whom I adored, was separated from both of us for years while I was sent off to boarding schools, as was the custom for boys of my class. I discovered mathematics early, a language of certainty in an uncertain world. While other boys played cricket, I devoured Einstein's theory of relativity and wrestled with quantum mechanics. I was awkward, stammering, often lost in my own thoughts. My handwriting was atrocious, my clothes perpetually disheveled. The masters at Sherborne School complained I was interested only in science to the detriment of classical education. If he's to stay at public school, one wrote, he must aim at becoming educated. If he is to be solely a scientific specialist, he is wasting his time at a public school. They were partly right. I was wasting my time there. But not because I lacked interest in becoming educated. Rather, I was already racing far ahead of their curriculum. At King's College, Cambridge, I finally found intellectual peers. There, I worked on the foundations of mathematics, exploring questions posed by the great German mathematician David Hilbert. Could there exist a definite method to determine whether any given mathematical proposition was provable? In 1936, at just 24 years old, I published On Computable Numbers, introducing what would later be called the Turing machine, a hypothetical device that manipulates symbols on a strip of tape according to a table of rules. It was an abstract concept, not an actual machine. Yet this theoretical construct would become the foundation of all modern computing. I proved that such a machine could compute anything that is computable. And importantly, I also proved that some mathematical problems are uncomputable. There are things that no algorithm can solve. This revelation shattered Hilbert's dream of mathematical completeness, but opened the door to a new understanding of computation itself. In September 1938, I began part-time work for the Government Code and Cipher School. Within a year, Britain was at war with Nazi Germany. I was summoned to Bletchley Park, a Victorian estate in Buckinghamshire, that became Britain's code-breaking headquarters. There, we faced our greatest challenge, the German Enigma machine. Enigma was a diabolically complex encryption device. Each day, the German operators would configure their machines according to settings listed in codebooks. With millions upon millions of possible configurations, the Germans believed Enigma to be unbreakable. They were wrong. Building on work by Polish mathematicians, I designed the bomb, an electromechanical device that could detect the daily settings of Enigma machines. It wasn't what you would recognize as a computer. It was a specialized code-breaking tool. But it worked. We were reading German military communications, tracking U-boat wolf packs in the Atlantic, anticipating military movements across Europe and Africa. Churchill called us the geese who laid the golden eggs but never cackled. Our work remained classified for decades after the war. Historians now estimate that Bletchley Park's code-breaking shortened World War II by 2 to 4 years, potentially saving 14 to 21 million lives. I rarely spoke of this work, even to my closest friends. Official secrecy demanded silence. The war years were, paradoxically, among my happiest. At Bletchley, eccentricity was tolerated if it produced results. I was known for chaining my mug to the radiator, riding a bicycle wearing a gas mask against hay fever, and converting my savings to silver ingots that I then buried in the countryside, forgetting precisely where. My colleagues accepted these quirks because my mind was useful. After the war, I joined the National Physical Laboratory to design the automatic computing engine, one of the first attempts to build an electronic stored program computer. Later, at the University of Manchester, I helped develop the Manchester Mark I, another early computer. But my interests were evolving. I began asking fundamental questions about machine intelligence. In my 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, I proposed what would later be called the Turing test, a way to determine if a machine could think. Can machines think? I asked. Rather than debating definitions of thinking, I suggested a practical test. If a human evaluator could not reliably distinguish between responses from a machine and a human, the machine could be said to demonstrate intelligent behavior. I predicted that by the year 2000, computers would be so sophisticated that the average interrogator would have less than a 70% chance of making the correct identification after 5 minutes of questioning. Was I right? You can judge that for yourselves. In 1952, my world collapsed. During investigation of a burglary at my home, I acknowledged a sexual relationship with Arnold Murray, a working-class man 19 years my junior. Homosexual acts were criminal offenses in Britain at that time. I was charged with gross indecency, the same law that had been used to prosecute Oscar Wilde in 1895. Given the choice between imprisonment or probation conditional on hormonal treatment, chemical castration, I chose the latter. Estrogen injections were administered to suppress my libido. My body betrayed me. I developed breasts, became impotent, and fell into depression. My security clearance was revoked. The man who had helped save Britain could no longer be trusted by Britain. I was barred from the United States. The mathematician whose work was laying the foundations for the computer revolution was now deemed a security risk. On June 7, 1954, my cleaner found my body. Beside me was an apple, partially eaten and apparently laced with cyanide. I was 41 years old. The coroner ruled suicide, though my mother insisted it was an accident from my careless chemical experiments. Some have even suggested it might have been murder by intelligence services fearing what secrets I might spill. The truth? I had long been fascinated by the fairy tale of Snow White. The apple is a powerful symbol. Knowledge, temptation, poison, death. Perhaps in my final moments I found a certain theatrical logic in it. For decades after my death, my contributions remained obscured, partly by official secrecy surrounding Bletchley Park, partly by society's discomfort with my homosexuality. It wasn't until the 1970s that my wartime code-breaking became public knowledge. My papers on computing, once considered esoteric mathematics, were gradually recognized as visionary. The rehabilitation of my reputation has been remarkably complete. In 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued an official public apology for my utterly unfair treatment. Queen Elizabeth II granted me a posthumous pardon in 2013. In 2017, the Alan Turing Law posthumously pardoned thousands of gay men convicted under historical legislation. Today, my face appears on the British $50 note. The highest honor in computing, the Turing Award, bears my name. Universities have named buildings after me. Films have dramatized my life, though they take considerable liberties with the facts, as such entertainments tend to do. Would I recognize the world my ideas helped create? Your smartphones contain more computing power than all of Bletchley Park possessed. Artificial intelligence now defeats human champions at chess and Go, creates art, writes text, drives cars. The internet connects billions of people through machines that communicate in ways I only theorized. Yet some things remain unchanged. The tension between privacy and security that we navigated at Bletchley continues in your debates over encryption and surveillance. The prejudices that destroyed my life persist in many parts of the world, though there has been progress I could hardly have imagined. I once wrote, "We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done." This remains true. The mathematical problems I couldn't solve, the machines I envisioned but couldn't build, the society I hoped might become more rational and just, these all remain works in progress. I am remembered now as a genius, a martyr, a victim, a hero. The reality was simpler. I was a mathematician who saw patterns others missed. I was a man who loved other men in a time when that was forbidden. I was a human being trying to understand the nature of thought itself, what it means to calculate, to think, to be. The question I posed in 1950 still resonates. Can machines think? Perhaps the more important question now is, Can humans think? Can we think clearly about the implications of the technologies we've created? Can we think compassionately about those who differ from whatever we consider normal? Can we think carefully about the world we're building? I dreamed of machines that could think. What I couldn't know was that the world would one day be filled with people who choose not to.